Business cycle, trade cycle. The business cycle refers to the regular ups and downs in economic activity over time. It affects employment, income, production, and price levels. One business cycle equals repeated economic fluctuations. The economy moves in cycles. Sometimes it grows, and sometimes it shrinks. Recession. Example: when businesses are doing well, jobs increase. But when sales drop, unemployment rises. 2 looks like a wave. When we plot economic indicators, employment, income, prices, they form a wave-like pattern, up and down over time. Regular phases. Business cycles repeat every few years, typically 3 to 4 years. Example: after a period of high profits, businesses may slow down due to market saturation. Definitions by experts. Keynes. A trade cycle is a period of good trade, rising prices, low unemployment, alternating with bad trade, falling prices, high unemployment. The business cycles are fluctuations in economic activities that follow a somewhat regular pattern. A trade cycle is a period of prosperity followed by a period of depression. Short trick to remember: wave. Wave-like pattern, ups and downs. Alternate periods, boom and recession, varies every 3 to 4 years. Employment and economy affected. Think of wave to recall business cycle. Features of business cycle. The business cycle has some key features that describe how it works. Let's break them down simply. Key features of business cycle. 1. Recurring fluctuations. The economy keeps moving through periods of growth, boom, and decline. Example: in some years, companies expand, and in other years, they cut jobs. 2. Duration, usually 3 to 4 years. A business cycle typically lasts 3 to 4 years but can be shorter or longer. Example: sometimes an economic boom may last for 5 years, while a recession may last only 1 year. 3. Expansion and contraction forces. The economy is pushed up during growth and pulled down during recession. Example: when businesses expand, jobs increase, but when demand falls, layoffs happen. 4. Sudden crisis. Booms and features of business cycle. The business cycle has some key features that describe how it works. Let's break them down simply. Key features of business cycle. 1. Crisis. Booms end suddenly, while recessions slow down gradually. Example: a stock market crash can cause a sudden economic downfall, while recovery takes time. 5. All sectors are affected. Synchronic. When a recession happens, most industries feel the impact. Example: if the automobile sector is down, it affects steel, electronics, and transport too. 6. Non-durable goods are stable. Essential goods, food, medicine, are less affected by business cycles. Example: even in a recession, people still buy bread, milk, and medicines. 7. Inventory levels change. Businesses store too many goods during booms but reduce production in recessions. Example: a company may overproduce phones in good times but struggle to sell them in a downturn. 8. Profits fluctuate more than salaries. Business profits change faster than salaries. Example: in a boom, businesses make huge profits, but in a recession, they lose money quickly. 9. Global impact, international. If one country enters a recession, it can affect others. Example: in 2008, the USA's financial crisis impacted India's IT sector due to lower outsourcing. Short trick to remember: rise and dip. Recurring fluctuations. International impact. Synchronic, affects all industries. Expansion and contraction. Duration, 3 to 4 years. Inventory levels change. Profits fluctuate. Remember rise and dip to recall business cycle features. Phases of business cycle. The business cycle moves through different phases, from growth to decline and then recovery. Let's break it down simply. 6 phases of business cycle. 1. Expansion, prosperity. The economy is growing, businesses expand, jobs increase, profits rise. High production, investment, and credit availability. Example: more people buy cars, demand increases, and companies hire more workers. Peak: the economy reaches its highest point. Growth slows down and prices become very high. Example: house prices rise too much, making it hard to afford homes. Recession: the boom ends and economic decline begins. Stock markets crash, companies cut jobs, and investments stop. Example: a company stops hiring due to low demand, leading to job losses. 4. Depression: the economy is at its lowest point. Mass unemployment, low production, and business failures occur. Example: in 2008, many companies shut down and people lost jobs worldwide. 5. Trough, bottom point: the economy hits rock bottom and stops declining. Example: after a long period of low demand, businesses slowly start stabilizing. 6. Recovery, revival: the economy starts growing again, businesses reopen, jobs return, profits rise. Banks give more loans, demand increases, and confidence is restored. Example: after a crisis, new startups emerge, creating job opportunities. Short trick to remember: EPRDTR, every person recovers during tough recession. Expansion: P, peak, boom. Recession: depression, T, trough, bottom point, recovery. Use EPRDTR to recall business cycle phases. Causes of business cycle. The business cycle is influenced by different internal and external factors. Let's break them down simply. 6 main causes of business cycle. 1. Banking operations. Banks control money supply by giving or restricting loans. When banks give more loans, businesses expand, economy booms. When banks restrict loans, businesses slow down, economy contracts. Example: if a bank increases loan interest rates, people borrow less, reducing business growth. 2. Capital goods and consumer goods. Imbalance in production of capital goods, machines, factories, and consumer goods, clothes, food, causes instability. Example: if companies produce too many cars but people buy fewer cars, it creates an oversupply, leading to losses. 3. Purchasing power. If people's income does not match production levels, demand fluctuates. Example: if workers lose jobs, they buy less, causing businesses to sell less and cut production. 4. Profit mania. Producers increase production too much when demand is high, expecting huge profits. But when demand suddenly drops, they suffer losses and cut production. Example: a mobile company makes extra phones, but low demand leads to unsold stock and losses. 5. Human psychology. People's mood affects the economy. Optimism leads to spending, pessimism leads to saving. Example: if investors feel positive, they invest more, economy grows. If they panic, they withdraw money, causing a recession. 6. Cyclical weather changes. Weather affects farming and essential goods. Bad weather reduces crop production, increasing prices and affecting the economy. Example: a bad monsoon causes less food production, increasing food prices and affecting workers' purchasing power. Short trick to remember: BCPA control profits and people's hard work. B. Banking operations. C. Capital and consumer goods. Purchasing power. Profit mania. Human psychology. Weather changes. Use BCPPHW to recall causes of business cycle. Effects of business cycle. The business cycle affects businesses, people, and the overall economy in 2 major phases: expansion and recession. Let's break them down simply. During expansion. Expansion is when the economy is growing. Business is booming, but some problems arise. More jobs and higher wages. Shortage of workers. Companies pay higher wages to hire employees. Example, a company needs more staff, so it offers higher salaries to attract workers. Rising prices, inflation. Demand for goods and services increases. Prices go up. Example, people are buying more houses, so cement and steel prices increase. Winners and losers in inflation. Gains, businessmen, farmers, borrowers, government, losses, fixed income workers, lenders, investors. Social effects, rich get richer, poor get poorer. People lose trust in money due to rising prices. Example, a country with high inflation faces political instability and protests. 2. Effects. During recession. Recession is when the economy slows down, leading to job losses and less business activity, lower demand and falling prices. People spend less, so companies reduce prices to attract buyers. Example, mobile phone demand drops, so companies cut prices to clear stock. Less investment and job losses. Companies stop hiring and investing because of low demand. Example, a car company stops new factory construction due to low sales. Banking and credit issues. People avoid taking loans. Banks have excess cash, but no borrowers. Example, during a recession, interest rates fall, but people still don't borrow. Stock market crash. People sell stocks, leading to price crashes and losses for investors. Example, the stock market falls sharply as businesses struggle with low profits. Short trick to remember, earn less. Expansion and recession naturally lead economic shifts. Employment and wage increase. A. Assets and inflation rise, expansion. Rich get richer, poor get poorer. N. No confidence in currency, expansion. L. Lower demand and prices, recession. E. Employment losses and investment drop, recession. S. Stock market decline, recession. S. Shrinking bank credit, use earn less. To recall effects of business cycle. Measures to control business cycles. Business cycles cause ups and downs in the economy, so the government takes actions to stabilize them. These actions are divided into 2 types. 1. Preventive measures, to avoid cycles. 2. Corrective measures, to fix cycles. 1. Preventive measures, avoiding business cycle. These measures help businesses prepare before a crisis happens, preserve assets, and avoid overinvestment. Don't expand too much or spend unnecessarily during growth. Example, a company earns high profits but doesn't invest recklessly in new factories. Avoid excess stock and risky purchases. Don't stockpile too much inventory or buy on credit beyond limits. Example, a car company avoids overproducing cars even when demand is high. Adjust credit rules. Keep strict loan rules in expansion and relax them in recession. Example, banks give fewer loans during growth, but help businesses in recession. Balance demand and supply. Maintain stable production levels to prevent extreme shortages or excesses. Example, a food company keeps supply stable to avoid price shocks. Government interventions. Governments can control industries, stabilize agriculture, and regulate markets. Example, a country controls essential goods like wheat and rice to prevent price jumps. The central bank corrective measures, fixing business cycle. When problems arise, the government takes corrective steps to stabilize the economy. Monetary policy. Central bank controls money supply. The central bank uses interest rates, cash reserves, and credit rules to manage inflation and recession. Example, RBI raises interest rates to slow inflation or lowers them to boost loans in recession. Fiscal policy. Government revenue and spending. The government changes taxes, public spending, and debt policies to manage cycles. Example, during a recession, the government reduces taxes to increase spending. Direct controls. Immediate action by government includes price controls, rationing, import-export rules, and restrictions on monopolies. Example, the government fixes petrol prices to prevent inflation. Automatic stabilizers. Built-in economic balancing. Taxes and subsidies adjust automatically to absorb shocks. Example, when income rises, higher tax rates reduce spending, controlling inflation. Fixed investment policy. Long-term investment plans ensure stable economic growth. Example, the government builds roads and infrastructure during a recession to boost jobs. Advertisement spending, ad spend policy. Some companies increase ads during slowdowns to maintain market presence. Example, Unilever, Coca-Cola, and Developer increased ads in 2001 despite slow growth. Short trick to remember. PAC-FAD, prevent and correct fluctuations in AD. Preserve assets and avoid overexpansion. A. Adjust credit rules. C. Control demand and supply. Fiscal and monetary policies. A. Automatic stabilizers. D. Direct government controls and ad spending. Use PAC-FAD to recall business cycle control measures. Economic indicators. Economic indicators help predict changes in the economy. There are two types of indicators. One, coincident indicators, move together. Two, leading indicators, predict future trends. One, coincident indicators happen at the same time. These indicators rise and fall together with economic activity. If one data series changes, the other also changes at the same time. Example, if employment levels increase, the GDP also rises in the same period. Graph representation. If number 1 and number 2 follow the same pattern, then number 1 is a coincident indicator of number 2. 2 leading indicators predict future trends. Leading indicators change first before the overall economy changes. Example, if new home building permits increase, it signals that the construction sector will grow soon. Graph representation. If number 1 changes before number 2, then number 1 is a leading indicator of number 2. Used for forecasting, barometric forecasting. Just like barometric pressure predicts weather, leading indicators predict economic changes. Factors for a good leading indicator. 1. Accuracy. The indicator must closely match real economic changes. 2. Adequate lead time. If an indicator predicts too late, it's useless. Example, predicting steel demand 1 week before is not helpful because restarting a steel factory takes time. Constant lead time. The indicator should have a fixed time gap before changes. Example, if an indicator predicts changes 6 months before once and 2 years before another time, it's unreliable. 4. Logical connection. There must be a real cause-effect relationship between the indicator and economic change. 5. Cost and timeliness. Data collection should be affordable and available on time for useful predictions. Table of leading indicators and their predictions. Leading indicator, predicted economic variable. Average work week, manufacturing output, weekly unemployment claims. State unemployment payments. New orders for durable goods. Durable goods sales, new orders for capital goods sales. New building permits, private housing starts, change in trade inventories. Industrial material prices, consumer prices, stock prices, general economic conditions. Short trick to remember, coincident and leading changes time. C. Coincident indicators. A. Accuracy and logical connection. L. Leading indicators and lead time. Cost and timeliness of data. Table of indicators and predictions. Use CalT to recall economic indicators. Inflation. Simple explanation. 1. Meaning of inflation. Inflation happens when prices of goods and services increase and the value of money decreases. It means you can buy fewer things with the same amount of money. Example, suppose 100 buys 10 apples today. If inflation rises, the same 100 may buy only 8 apples later. Main cause, less production of goods, more money in the economy, prices increase. 2 definitions of inflation. Crowther. Inflation is when the value of money falls and prices rise. Pigou. Inflation occurs when money supply increases faster than the output of goods. Keynesian view. True inflation starts when extra money supply does not increase output. Short trick to remember. VIP, value, increase, production. V, value of money falls, increase in prices. P, production issues and more money supply. Use VIP to recall inflation easily. Types of inflation. Simple explanation. 1. Based on rate of price increase. I. Creeping inflation, slow and steady. Prices increase very slowly, less than 3% per year. Considered healthy for economic growth. Example, milk price rising from 50 to 51 in a year. I. Walking inflation, noticeable increase. Prices increase moderately, 3 to 10% per year. A warning sign that inflation is rising. Example, vegetable prices rising 10% in a year. A. Running inflation, fast increase. Prices increase rapidly, more than 10% per year. Example, petrol price increasing by 15% in a year. I've galloping inflation, hyperinflation, out of control. Prices rise extremely fast, 100% or more in a year. Money loses value quickly, making savings useless. Foreign investors lose confidence and the economy collapses. Example, in Zimbabwe 2008, bread price went from 50 to 500 in weeks. Short trick to remember, CWRG, creeping, walking, running, galloping. C, creeping inflation, slow walking inflation, moderate rise. Running inflation, fast increase. G, galloping inflation, out of control. Use CWRG to easily recall the types of inflation. Types of inflation, based on money supply and demand. 2. Based on factors influencing money and demand. I. Excessive money supply inflation, too much money, too few goods. Inflation happens when too much money is in circulation, but goods and services remain the same. Example, if the government prints extra 500 notes, but the number of cars, phones, and food items remains the same, their prices will rise because more people have money to spend. I. Cost inflation. High production costs. Happens when cost of raw materials, wages, or production costs increase. Businesses increase product prices to maintain profit. Example, if wages increase but workers don't produce more, then manufacturers will increase product prices to cover costs. Deficit inflation, government overspending, occurs when the government spends more money than it earns and covers the deficit by printing new money. This increases purchasing power and raises prices. Example, if the government spends 10,000 crore on projects without collecting enough taxes, it prints more money, leading to inflation. Short trick to remember. ECD, excessive cost deficit. Excessive money supply inflation, too much money. C, cost inflation, production cost increase. D, deficit inflation, government overspending. Use ECD to easily recall these types of inflation. Types of inflation, based on time. 3. Based on time period. I. Wartime inflation. During war, govt spends more on war needs. Occurs when the government spends heavily on war instead of regular public needs. Supply of goods decreases because factories focus on war materials, leading to higher prices. Example, if a country is at war, factories make weapons instead of cars. Fewer cars available, car prices increase. I. Post-war inflation. After war, more money in public hands. Happens after war ends, when the government repays debts and reduces war taxes. People have more disposable income, but goods are still limited, leading to inflation. Example, after World War II, many countries faced high inflation because people had money but industries were rebuilding. Peacetime inflation. Regular govt spending causes price rise. Occurs in normal economic conditions when the government spends on big projects like highways, dams, railways. These projects take years to complete, so money is in circulation but not producing immediate goods, causing inflation. Example: government builds a new airport. It takes 5 years. Money is spent but no new products are available immediately, leading to inflation. Short trick to remember: WPP, war post-war, peacetime. Wartime inflation. Gov spends on war needs. Post-war inflation. More money, fewer goods. Peacetime inflation. Gov spends on long-term projects. Use WPP to easily recall these types of inflation. Types of inflation. Based on coverage scope. 4. Based on coverage scope. I. Comprehensive inflation. Inflation in the whole economy. Affects the entire economy. Prices of almost all goods and services increase together. Also called economy-wide inflation, because it happens at a national level. Example: if the government prints too much money, the value of money decreases, and prices of food, fuel, rent, and everything else rise. I. Sporadic inflation. Inflation in some sectors only. Happens only in specific industries or regions due to shortages or supply issues. Prices don't rise everywhere, only in some goods, services. Example: if heavy rains destroy onion crops, onion prices rise sharply, while other food prices remain stable. Short trick to remember: CS, comprehensive. C, comprehensive inflation, whole economy affected. S, sporadic inflation, specific goods affected. Use CS to easily recall these types of inflation. Types of inflation based on government's reaction. Based on government's reaction. Open inflation, no government control. Prices rise freely without any government control or restrictions. The economy works on a free market mechanism. Demand and supply decide prices. Example: if fuel prices increase due to high demand and the government does nothing to control it, it's open inflation. Inflation. Government tries to control prices. The government interferes to stop prices from rising by using price controls, rationing, or subsidies. But once these controls are removed, prices shoot up again. Example: if the government fixes the price of wheat to keep it affordable, but later removes the control, the price may increase suddenly. Short trick to remember: or open repressed. Open inflation. No control, free market prices rise. R, repressed inflation. Government controls prices, but they rise later. Use OR to easily recall these types of inflation. Types of inflation, Keynesian view. Based on Keynesian view. I, built-in inflation, wage price spiral. Cause, workers demand higher wages. Firms increase prices. Workers demand even more wages. The cycle repeats. Also called hangover inflation because it reflects past economic conditions. Example: if inflation is 6%, workers ask for a 7% salary hike. Companies raise product prices to cover costs. More inflation. Profit inflation. Higher profits equals higher prices. Cause: when investment is greater than savings, firms earn higher profits and increase prices. Inflation redistributes income. Profits go to business owners while workers suffer. Example: during an economic boom, big companies increase product prices to maximize profits, even if costs remain the same. Limited resources, rising. Cause: even if unemployed workers exist, certain resources cannot be increased or substituted. Due to limited supply, production costs rise and lead to inflation. Example: if skilled IT engineers are scarce, their salaries increase, higher cost of software development, tech product prices rise. IV, true inflation, full employment inflation. Once an economy reaches full employment, any extra demand increases prices, not output. Example, if all workers already have jobs, increasing government spending won't create more jobs, it will just increase prices. V. Markup inflation. Big companies and trade unions control prices. Monopoly firms and strong trade unions push prices and wages up beyond normal levels. Example, if a big car company dominates the market, it can increase car prices without competition. Similarly, unions demand higher wages, forcing firms to raise prices further. Short trick to remember, BPSTM, built-in profit semi-true markup. Built-in inflation. Profit inflation, investment savings. Semi-inflation, limited supply of some factors. T, true inflation, happens at full employment. M, markup inflation, monopoly firms and trade unions raise prices. Use BPSTM to easily recall Keynesian types of inflation. Modern theories of inflation? What are modern theories of inflation? Modern theories combine traditional and Keynesian views. Inflation is mainly caused by demand and supply changes in the economy. Inflation happens due to two main factors: demand-side factors, demand-pull inflation; supply-side factors, cost-push inflation. 1. Demand-pull inflation. Too much demand, not enough supply. Cause: when demand is higher than the available supply, prices increase. Example: if everyone wants to buy a new iPhone, but Apple can't produce enough, the price rises because of high demand. Key idea: too much money chasing too few goods. 2. Cost-push inflation. Higher costs, higher prices. Cause when the cost of production increases, companies raise prices. Example: if oil prices go up, transportation becomes costlier. Companies increase prices of goods and services. Key idea: higher production costs lead to higher product prices. Some economists' views. Some experts believe inflation is not always caused by just demand pull or cost push factors. Instead, inflation happens due to the interaction of both demand and supply changes in the market. Short trick to remember: DC, demand pull and cost push. Demand pull inflation, high demand equals price rise. Cost push inflation, higher costs, higher prices. Use DC to easily recall modern theories of inflation. Demand pull inflation. What is demand pull inflation? Definition: when the demand for goods and services is higher than the available supply, prices increase. Key idea: too much money chasing too few goods. Why does demand pull inflation happen? When people want to buy more than what is available, prices go up. Example: if there is a shortage of onions, but many people want to buy them, sellers increase the price because demand is high. This happened several years ago when onion prices skyrocketed. Aggregate demand, AD, equals total spending by consumers, government, entrepreneurs, investments. #2. How does demand pull inflation work? Graph explanation. X-axis equals aggregate output, income. Y-axis equals price level P. AS curve equals aggregate supply. AD curve is aggregate demand. When demand rises from AD0 to AD1, price increases from P0 to P1. Output increases from N0 to N1. If supply is elastic, flat AS curve, more output, less price rise. If supply is inelastic, steep AS curve, less output, more price rise. 3. Long-run effect, AS curve shift. In the long run, costs of production increase, wages, raw materials. This shifts S-curve leftward, increasing prices even more. Result: higher prices, but no extra output. Short trick to remember: DP, demand pull. Demand is high. P, prices go up. Use DP to easily recall demand pull inflation. Cost push inflation. What is cost push inflation? Definition: when the cost of production increases, businesses increase prices to maintain profits. Key idea: higher costs, higher prices. Why does cost push inflation happen? occurs due to supply-side factors, higher costs. Example, if petrol prices increase, transportation costs rise, making everything expensive. Aggregate supply S-curve moves upwards. When production costs rise, businesses produce less at the same price. This reduces output and increases prices. Result, higher prices, lower output, and less employment. Causes of cost push inflation. 1. Wage costs. Workers demand higher wages, production cost rises, prices increase. Example, trade unions demand more salary, companies raise product prices. 2. Material costs. If raw material prices rise, businesses charge more. Example, if petrol price goes up, transport costs increase, everything gets expensive. 3. Interest rates. High interest rates make loans costly, businesses pass the cost to customers. Example, if bank loan interest increases, business expenses rise, causing price hikes. 4. Profit motive. Companies increase prices to earn more profit, especially in monopoly markets. Example, big brands may increase prices even when costs remain the same. Cost push inflation versus demand pull inflation. Factor, cost push inflation. Demand pull inflation. Cause, higher costs, higher demand. Prices, output prices. Example, petrol prices rise, festival shopping boom. Short trick to remember, CP, cost push, costs increase. P, prices go up. Use CP to easily recall cost push inflation. Demand pull versus cost push inflation. What is the difference? Inflation can happen due to 2 reasons. Too much demand, higher production costs, cost push. Let's compare both. Basis, demand pull inflation. Cost push inflation. One meaning, too much demand increases prices. Higher costs increase prices. The start of inflation. Difficult to stop inflation. 3, caused by more money in the economy, spending, investment. Monopolies, unions, high wages, raw material cost. 4, solution, monetary and fiscal policies, reducing money supply, government control on prices and wages. Simple trick to remember, DC, demand versus cost. D, demand pull equals demand increase. Cost push, cost increase. Use DC to easily recall the difference. Causes of inflation. Inflation happens when demand is more than supply. It creates an imbalance in the economy. Causes of inflation. 1. Increase in demand. More demand equals higher prices. When people demand more goods and services, prices go up. Why? Increase in public spending. When the government spends more, war, development projects, demand rises and prices increase. Increase in private spending. More investment and consumption by businesses and people raises demand and prices. Increase in exports. If a country exports too much, fewer goods remain for local people, increasing prices. Tax reduction. Lower taxes equals more money with people, more demand equals higher prices. Government repays debt. When the government gives money back to people, their spending power increases, demand rises, prices rise. Population growth. More people equals more demand for food, housing, etc. Higher prices. Decrease in supply. Less supplies, higher prices. When supply of goods and services reduces, prices go up. Why? Shortage of raw materials. If raw materials like oil, metals, or labor become scarce, production slows down and prices increase. Hoarding by traders. Traders store goods to sell at higher prices later, causing artificial shortages. Hoarding by consumers. People buy in bulk to avoid future price hikes, reducing availability and increasing prices. Natural disasters. Floods, droughts, or earthquakes destroy crops and factories, reducing supply and raising prices. Law of diminishing returns. When businesses expand too much, production costs increase, leading to higher prices. War and conflicts. Countries focus on war production, reducing goods for citizens, leading to inflation. Short trick to remember. DHSNPT. D. Demand increase, public and private spending exports. H. Hoarding, traders and consumers. S. Shortages, raw materials, labor. N. Natural disasters, floods, droughts. P. Population growth, more demand. Tax reduction and government debt repayment. Use DHSNPT to quickly recall inflation causes. Measurement of inflation. Inflation is measured by calculating the percentage change in a price index over time. A price index tracks the average price of a selected group of goods and services. Main price index. Used Consumer Price Index, CPI. CPI is also called the Cost of Living Index because it tracks the price changes of goods and services used by urban consumers, e.g. food, fuel, housing. Some items are excluded. For example, forklifts used in industries are not included, but gasoline and milk are included because they are used by consumers. How CPI is measured by Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS. 1. Identify market basket. BLS determines which on 184 items, e.g. groceries, fuel, rent, are commonly purchased by consumers. Assign weight. Each category gets a weight based on how much it contributes to an average household budget. More important items equals higher weight. Track price changes. BLS checks prices in 85 cities every month to track how costs change. 4. Compare with base year. The current prices are compared with prices in the base year to see how much inflation has occurred. Short trick to remember. MITC-M, market basket, identify common goods and services. I, item weight, assign budget importance. T, track prices, monitor changes in 85 cities. C, compare with base year, find inflation rate. Use MITC to recall inflation measurement easily. Effects of inflation. Inflation has both positive and negative effects on the economy. Let's break it down in simple terms. 1. Effects on production. Inflation can boost production because rising prices motivate producers to invest and earn higher profits. But too much inflation is harmful. If inflation rises beyond full employment, it creates economic instability. Negative effects. Misallocation of resources. Producers may shift focus to luxury, non-essential goods instead of essentials, worsening inflation. Changes in transactions. Producers hold less real money and invest more in stocks or assets. Reduction in production. High input costs reduce production levels due to uncertainty. Fall in quality. Sellers adulterate goods to maximize profits. Hoarding and black marketing. Artificial shortages increase prices unfairly. Reduction in savings. People spend more and save less due to rising costs. 2. Distributional effects. Inflation affects different groups in different ways. Debtors and creditors. Debtors gain, pay back loans with cheaper money, while creditors lose, receive money with lower purchasing power. Business community. Entrepreneurs benefit as prices rise faster than costs, increasing profits. Fixed income groups. Salaried workers and pensioners suffer as their income doesn't increase with inflation. Investors. Stock investors gain, higher profits and dividends, but bondholders lose, fixed returns lose value. Farmers. Higher prices for farm products help farmers repay debts and earn profits. 3 other effects. Government. Gains from higher tax revenue, but public debt burden reduces. Balance of payments. Imports increase, exports decrease, leading to an unfavorable trade balance. Exchange rate. Domestic currency depreciates as inflation reduces its value. Monetary system collapse. Extreme inflation, hyperinflation make money worthless. Social impact. Rich get richer, poor get poorer, leading to strikes, black marketing, and corruption. Short trick to remember. Short trick to remember. M. Misallocation of resources. I. Income distribution effect. Debtors, creditors, salaried people, investors. D. Decrease in production and quality. I. Inflationary profits for businesses and farmers. B. Balance of payments issues. A. Adulteration, hoarding, and black marketing. G. Government revenue and debt reduction. S. Social and monetary collapse. Use MIDI bags to recall effects of inflation easily. Measures to control inflation. Inflation means a continuous rise in prices, which reduces the purchasing power of money. To control inflation, the government and central bank use different measures. These are classified into three main types: monetary measures, fiscal measures, and other measures. #1. Monetary measures. These measures aim to reduce money supply in the economy to control inflation. The central bank, like RBI, controls the supply of loans and credit by increasing interest rates. Loans become expensive, reducing borrowing. Selling government securities absorbs excess money from the market. Raising reserve requirements. Banks keep more money with the central bank, lending less. Example: if banks increase loan interest rates from 8 to 12%, people will take fewer loans, reducing money circulation. Demonetization of currency. The government removes high-value currency notes to curb black money and illegal cash flow. Example: in 2016, India demonetized 500 and 1,000 notes to reduce black money. Issue of new currency. Old currency notes are replaced with new ones to reset the monetary system. Example: if hyperinflation occurs and 500 loses its value, the government may issue new 500 notes with controlled circulation. 2. Fiscal measures. These measures focus on government spending and taxation to control inflation. Reduction in unnecessary government expenditure. The government reduces spending on non-essential projects to control money supply. Example: avoiding unnecessary construction of government offices during high inflation. Increase in taxes. The government increases personal, corporate, and commodity taxes to reduce excess demand. Example: if the GST on luxury cars increases from 18% to 28%, fewer people will buy them, reducing demand. Increase in savings. Encouraging people to save more through attractive savings schemes reduces money circulation. Example: banks offer higher interest on fixed deposits, making people deposit money instead of spending. Surplus budgets. The government collects more revenue and spends less, absorbing excess money from the economy. Example: if the government earns 100 crore from taxes but spends only 80 crore, 20 crore is saved to reduce inflation. Public debt. Borrowing from people. The government borrows from the public through bonds and securities to absorb excess money. Example: RBI issues bonds worth 10,000 crores to reduce excess cash in circulation. 3. Other measures. These measures focus on increasing supply and controlling prices. Increasing production. Producing more essential goods reduces shortages and keeps prices stable. Example: if wheat prices rise due to low supply, the government boosts wheat production to control inflation. Rational wage policy. The government ensures wages grow moderately to prevent a wage price spiral. Higher wages, higher prices, more inflation. Example: if salaries rise by 20% without increasing productivity, companies raise product prices, causing inflation. A balanced increase prevents this. Price control. The government fixes maximum prices for essential goods to prevent overpricing. Example: if onions become too expensive, the government sets a maximum price of 30 per kilogram. Rationing. Essential goods are distributed in limited quantities to ensure fair access and control inflation. Example: the government provides 5 kilograms of rice per person at 2 kilogram through ration shops. A shortcut to remember: CDITSPR. Credit control, demonetization, issue of new currency, tax increase, savings, price control, rationing. Trick word: CD Sprit, with spirit to fight inflation. Key takeaways. Monetary measures reduce money supply. Fiscal measures control spending and taxation. Other measures increase supply and price stability. Government and central bank work together to control inflation. This breakdown will help you quickly revise and remember the topic for exams. Concept of supply of money. The supply of money refers to the total quantity of money available in an economy at a given time. It includes cash, bank deposits, and other liquid assets. Key points. The central bank, RBI, controls the money supply. The supply of money is fixed in the short run and does not change with interest rates. It is represented by a vertical supply curve because the central bank sets a fixed quantity of money. Example. Imagine RBI decides to print 10,000 crores and injects it into the economy. This amount remains fixed unless RBI changes it, irrespective of interest rates. Now, question 2. How the central bank controls money supply. The RBI, Reserve Bank of India, controls the supply of money using 1. Open market operations, buying, selling government bonds to increase, decrease money supply. Reserve requirements. Banks must keep a certain percentage of deposits with RBI. 3. Bank rate and repo rate, changing interest rates to influence borrowing and money flow. Example, if inflation is high, RBI may increase interest rates, making loans expensive, reducing money supply. 3. Supply curve of money. The money supply curve is a vertical line because the central bank fixes the quantity of money in the short run. It does not depend on interest rates. Example, even if banks offer higher or lower interest rates, the total money available remains the same unless RBI changes it. Next shortcut to remember, FORM, fixed supply, open market operations, reserve requirements, monetary policy. Trick word, form, the money supply system. Key takeaways. Money supply is controlled by RBI. Fixed in the short run, not affected by interest rates. Controlled through open market operations, reserve ratios, and interest rates. Represented by a vertical supply curve. This simplified explanation will help you understand the topic quickly. Let me know if you need any clarifications. Factors affecting money supply. The money supply in an economy depends on various factors controlled by the RBI, banks, and government policies. Let's break it down simply. 1. Net bank credit to the government. The government borrows money from RBI by buying securities, IUs. When RBI gives loans to the government, new money is printed, money supply increases. When the government repays RBI, money is removed from circulation, money supply decreases. Example, imagine the government needs 100 crores for development. RBI prints new money and gives it. This increases the money supply. But if the government pays back the loan, money is reduced. 2. Bank credit to the commercial sector. Banks give loans to businesses and individuals, increasing the money supply. More loans, more money in circulation. Less lending, less money in the economy. Example, if a bank lends 10 lakh to a business, the business spends it, and the money keeps circulating, increasing the money supply. Shaft 3. Foreign exchange assets. When foreign currency enters the economy, it increases the money supply. More foreign exchange, more local money supply. Example, an exporter earns $1,000 from the USA and converts it into 83,000 spurge in an Indian bank. This adds 83,000 to the economy, increasing the money supply. 4. Government currency liabilities to the public. The government prints currency like 1 notes and coins. This adds to the money supply. More coins and small notes equals more money in circulation. Example, if the government prints 500 crores worth of 1 coins, this increases the money supply. 5. Non-monetary liabilities of banks. Some liabilities of banks reduce the money supply because they do not create new money. Liabilities like pension funds, provident funds, and reserves are deducted from the money supply calculation. Example, if a bank has 1,000 crores in reserves, this amount is not freely available in the economy, reducing the money supply. Shortcut to remember, CBFGN, credit, bank loans, forex, government printing, non-monetary liabilities. Trick word, CBFGN, sounds like CBIGN to remember easily. Key takeaways. Government borrowing increases money supply. Bank loans to businesses increase money flow. Foreign exchange adds more local currency. Government printing currency increases money supply. Non-monetary liabilities reduce money supply. This will help you remember the topic easily. Let me know if you need further clarification. Measures of money supply in India. Money supply refers to the total amount of money available in an economy. The RBI uses different measures to classify money supply. These are divided into old money measures, M1, M2, M3, M4, and new monetary aggregates, M0, NM1, NM2, NM3. 1. Old money measures, M1, M2, M3, M4. These were used before 1998 to measure money supply. M1, narrow money, stood equals currency with the public plus demand deposits, bank accounts that can be withdrawn anytime, other deposits with RBI. M2 equals M1 plus post office savings. M3, broad money, equal M1 plus time deposits, fixed deposits, recurring deposits. M4, M3 plus post office time deposits. Example, if you have 1,000 in your pocket cash and 5,000 in your savings account demand deposit, it is included in M1. If you also have a 10,000 fixed deposit, it becomes M3. M1 equals highly liquid, easily usable money. M3 equals less liquid, stored for longer period. 2. New monetary aggregates, M and M2 and M3. After 1998, RBI introduced new money supply measures. M0, reserve money, equals currency in circulation plus bankers' deposits with RBI plus other RBI deposits. NM1, currency with the public plus demand deposits plus other deposits with RBI. NM2, NM1 plus short-term savings, certificates of deposit, bank term deposits up to 1 year. NM3, new broad money, equals NM2 plus long-term deposits above 1 year, borrowings from non-banking sources. Example, if a bank takes 1 crore from a company as a 1-year deposit, it is counted in NM2. If the deposit is for 5 years, it is counted in NM3. M0 equals base money, RBI controls 3 equals more accurate measure of money supply. 3. Liquidity measures, L1, L2, L3. These measure the liquidity, ease of converting assets into cash in the economy. L1 equals NM3 plus postal deposits. L2 equals L1 plus financial institution liabilities. L3 2 plus public deposits with NBFCs, non-banking financial companies. Example, if a company deposits money in LIC or other financial institutions, it will be counted in L2s. If a person invests in NBFCs like Bajaj Finance, it will be L3. Higher L equals more money available in the economy. Shortcut to remember, ONL, old, new, liquidity. Trick word L, sounds like online to remember easily. Key takeaways, M1 equal cash demand deposits, most liquid. M3 equals broad money, includes fixed deposits. M0 reserve money, controlled by RBI. NM3 equals modern broad money, more accurate. L1, L2, L3 measure liquidity, ease of use. This summary makes it easier to recall. Let me know if you need any more clarification. Changes in the money supply. What happens when RBI changes the money supply? The Reserve Bank of India, RBI, controls the money supply in the economy. When it increases or decreases money supply, it affects interest rates, demand, real GDP, and price levels. Expansionary monetary policy, more money in the economy. RBI buys bonds. More money enters the economy. Bond demand increases. People buy more bonds, shifting demand from D1 to D2. Bond prices rise, prices move from P1 to P2. Money supply increases, shifts from M to M, rightward shift in supply curve, S to S. Interest rates fall, people shift from holding bonds to other investments. Investment and exports rise, businesses invest more and exports increase. Aggregate demand increases. The demand curve moves rightward from AD1 to AD2. Real GDP grows, more production and jobs. Prices rise. Inflation, more money means prices go up. Example, if RBI buys 10,000 crore worth of bonds, the banks have more cash, interest rates fall, businesses take more loans, and economic activity increases. Understanding Figure 6.8. Panel A, bonds market. Demand for bonds shifts right, D1 to D2. More people buy bonds, so bond prices rise, P1 to P2. Panel B, money market. RBI buying bonds increases money supply M to M. Money supply curve shifts right S to S. To balance demand, interest rates fall R1 to R2. Panel C, economy. Lower interest rates, more investment in exports. AD curve moves right, 81 to 82. Real GDP increases, Y1 to Y2. Prices go up, inflation. Shortcut to remember, BMINs, money, interest, aggregate demand. Trick word, BIMA. Sounds like insurance, easy to remember. Key takeaways. RBI buys bonds, more money, lower interest rates. Lower interest, more investment, higher GDP. Higher GDP, more demand, prices rise, inflation. This is the basic impact of increasing the money supply. Let me know if you need any more clarification. Fiscal policy. What is fiscal policy? Fiscal policy is the government's financial strategy to manage the economy using taxation, spending, borrowing, and debt management. Key elements. Taxes, revenue for government. Expenditure, spending on public services. Borrowing, loans taken by government. Public debt management, handling government debt. Example, if the government lowers taxes, people have more money to spend, boosting the economy. If the government increases spending on infrastructure, more jobs are created, increasing demand and economic growth. Definitions of fiscal policy. Bueller's definition. Fiscal policy equals government's financial management, tax, spending, borrowing to achieve national goals. Arthur Smithy's definition. Fiscal policy equals government uses revenue and expenditure to influence income, production, and jobs. Example, if unemployment is high, the government may increase spending on public projects, like roads and schools, to create jobs and boost demand. Shortcut to remember. TEBD. Taxes, expenditure, borrowing, debt. Trick word, EBD, sounds like tabdili, change in economy. Key takeaways. Fiscal policy, government's financial plan. Main tools equals taxation, spending, borrowing, debt management. Goal equals control economy, manage growth, jobs, and inflation. Let me know if you need further simplification. Features of fiscal policy. Fiscal policy has several key characteristics that impact the economy. Let's break them down simply. 1. Rationalization of product classification codes. The government has introduced standard codes for products to classify them properly for indirect taxes. This has reduced tax disputes and legal issues. Example, earlier, companies would argue whether a product falls under luxury tax or basic goods tax. A standard coding system removes confusion. 2. Common accounting year for income tax. India's financial year is fixed, April 1st, March 31, for taxation. This reduces fraud and simplifies tax calculations. Example, if businesses use different financial years, it would be difficult to track income properly. A fixed year makes tax collection easier. 3. Long-term fiscal policy. Introduced in 1986 to give businesses more trust in government financial plans, helps in long-term economic planning. Example, if tax policies change every year, businesses can't plan investments. A stable fiscal policy gives confidence. Impact on rural employment. The government uses fiscal policy to create jobs in rural areas. Programs like Jawahar Rozgar Yojana and National Rural Employment Program help provide work. Example, government-funded road projects in villages provide jobs to rural workers, reducing unemployment. 5. Black money. Unaccounted money, black money, is a major issue in India. The government has introduced disclosure schemes, like voluntary disclosure Indira Vikas Patra, but they have not been fully successful. Example, some businesses hide income to avoid taxes. Fiscal policies try to bring hidden money into the economy. 6. Reliance on indirect taxes. India depends more on indirect taxes, GST, excise duty, customs duty, than direct taxes, income tax, corporate tax. Problem: indirect taxes affect both rich and poor equally, which can be unfair. Example, whether you are rich or poor, you pay the same GST on a product. But income tax is higher for the rich, making it fairer. 7. Inadequate public sector contribution. The public sector, government-run companies has not contributed enough to economic growth. Many government companies run at a loss, draining public funds. Example, Air India before privatization was losing money but still needed government funding. This reduced money available for public welfare. Introduction of MODVAT, 1986. MODVAT, Modified Value-Added Tax, reduces double taxation on manufactured products. Businesses get credit for tax paid on raw materials, reducing final product cost. Example, a car manufacturer pays tax on steel, raw material. Without MODVAT, they would pay tax again on the final car. MODVAT allows tax adjustment, reducing costs. 9. Inflationary potential. Fiscal policy sometimes causes inflation instead of controlling it. Large budget deficits, indirect taxes, black money, and rising wages all contribute to inflation. Example, if the government spends too much without enough revenue, it prints more money. Too much money in circulation equals higher prices. Shortcut to remember. TRLR-BIPMI. Taxes rationalization, long-term, rural, black money, indirect taxes, public sector inflation. Trick word, triple BIM. Sounds like triple beam, balancing economy. Key takeaways. Fiscal policy governs financial control through taxes and spending. Helps in economic stability, employment, and reducing black money. Can sometimes cause inflation if not managed well. Let me know if you need further simplification. Objectives of fiscal policy. Fiscal policy helps in achieving 4 major economic goals: employment, stability, growth, and social justice. Let's simplify them one by one. 1. Fiscal policy for full employment. Goal: reduce unemployment and create jobs for everyone willing to work. How? Lower taxes to encourage spending and investment. Government spends more deficit budget to boost demand and fight economic slowdowns. Public spending on roads, railways, and social security creates jobs. Reduce direct taxes, income tax, to increase savings and investments. Government borrows money to fund productive projects. Example, during a recession, the government builds highways, which creates jobs for laborers, engineers, and suppliers. 2. Fiscal policy and economic stabilization. Goal: keep the economy stable by controlling inflation and deflation. How? If prices rise too fast, inflation, increase taxes and reduce government spending. If economy slows down, deflation, reduce taxes and increase government spending. Balance between economic growth and price stability. Example, if inflation is high, the government raises taxes to reduce spending, less demand, lower prices. 3. Fiscal policy and economic growth. Goal: help poor countries escape poverty and develop rapidly. How? Encourage savings. People keep more money for future investments. Government uses tax revenue for infrastructure, roads, bridges, power plants. Government borrows money and uses it for productive projects. Increase taxes on luxury goods, but reduce taxes on essentials. Example, India used public investments to build power plants, roads, and factories, which helped in economic growth. 4. Fiscal policy and social justice. Goal: reduce income inequality by redistributing wealth from rich to poor. How? Higher taxes on the rich, lower taxes for the poor. Public money spent on education, healthcare, and welfare schemes. Social security programs for poor and unemployed people. Example, a rich person pays more taxes, which the government uses to give free education and healthcare to poor families. Shortcut to remember. ESGS, employment, stabilization, growth, social justice. Trick word, eggs, symbolizing growth and stability in economy. Key takeaways. Fiscal policy helps in job creation, price stability, economic growth, and reducing inequality. Government uses taxation, spending, and borrowing to control the economy. A balance between growth and stability is important for a healthy economy. Role of fiscal policy. Fiscal policy helps in economic development by influencing investment, savings, poverty reduction, and exports. Let's simplify its role step by step. Capital formation. Goal: increase investment in both public and private sectors to boost GDP. How? Government invests in infrastructure, industries, and public projects. This helps increase GDP over time. In India, capital formation as a percent of GDP increased from 10.2% 1950-51, 23.7% 2001-2 due to fiscal policies. Resource mobilization. Goal: collect money from different sources to fund economic development. How? Government collects taxes, savings, and public debt. More resources equals more development. Example: resource mobilization increased from 70% 1965 to 66, 90% 2001-2, showing better fund utilization. Incentives to private sector. Goal: encourage businesses to invest and grow. How? Tax benefits, subsidies, and exemptions for businesses. Special benefits for export-oriented and backward area industries. Example: software companies in India got tax exemptions, boosting the IT industry. 4. Encourages savings. Goal: increase household and corporate savings. How? Tax benefits for fixed deposits, life insurance, provident funds, NSCs. Companies get tax exemptions to save and reinvest. Example: India's savings rate increased from 10.4% 1951 to 24% 102 due to fiscal policies. 5. Poverty alleviation and employment generation. Goal: reduce poverty and create jobs. How? Government funds employment and rural development schemes. Supports small-scale and cottage industries. Example: schemes like PMRY, IRDP, JRY, and EAS provide jobs to rural people. 6. Reduction in income inequality. Transfer wealth from rich to poor. How? Progressive taxes. Rich pay higher taxes. Money collected is used for welfare schemes. Example: government collects corporate tax, capital gains tax, and wealth tax, using funds for subsidies and social welfare. Shack 7. Export promotion. Goal: increase exports by supporting businesses. How? Subsidies, tax exemptions, and reduced import duty on raw materials. Encourages industries to produce more for exports. Example: exports rose from 4.5% 1960-61, 23.4% 2001-02 due to fiscal incentives. A shortcut to remember. CRISPER. Capital formation, resource mobilization, incentives, savings, poverty alleviation, equality, exports. Trick word, like crispy fries, strong economy. Key takeaways. Fiscal policy boosts investment, employment, and savings. It reduces poverty and income inequality by supporting welfare schemes. Exports grow due to tax benefits and subsidies. Let me know if you need further simplification. Instruments of fiscal policy. Fiscal policy controls government spending, taxation, and borrowing to manage the economy. Let's break down its key instruments. 1. Budgetary policy. Goal: increase income flow in the economy. How? Government spends more, even with a budget deficit. Covers the deficit by borrowing or printing new currency. Helps in reducing unemployment and economic slowdown. Example: during the 2008 financial crisis, many governments increased spending to boost the economy. 2. Taxation policy. Goal: control consumption, investment, and income distribution. How? Lower taxes, more consumption and investment. Higher taxes on the rich reduce income inequality. Tax revenue used for public sector investment. Example: India reduced corporate tax to attract investments and boost businesses. 3. Public debt. Goal: finance deficits by borrowing instead of printing money. How? Government borrows from banks and public to fund development. Ensures low interest rates during economic crises. Uses idle funds for productive purposes. Example: the Indian government issues bonds to borrow money from the public, or public expenditure. Goal: increase government spending to fight recession and unemployment. How? Pump priming. Initial spending to restart economic growth. Compensatory spending. Government spends when private investment declines. Example. The US government spent billions on infrastructure to create jobs during recessions. Shortcut to remember. BTPP. Budget, taxation, public debt, public expenditure. Trick word, BTPP, Big Tax Plan Policy. Easy to recall. Key takeaways. Fiscal policy. Controls the economy using government spending, taxation, and borrowing. It reduces unemployment, stabilizes income, and promotes investments. Government adjusts taxes and spending to control economic growth. Let me know if you need further simplification. Significance of fiscal policy. Fiscal policy is how the government controls taxes and spending to manage the economy. Let's understand its key roles. How on stimulating the economy. Goal, increase economic growth and demand for goods and services. How? Lower taxes. People have more money to spend. Lower indirect taxes, cheaper goods and services. More government spending. More jobs and business growth. Example, during a recession, governments reduce taxes and increase spending to boost demand. Controlling inflation rates. Goal, reduce high prices inflation by managing money supply. How? Government buys back bonds and securities. More cash in the economy. Helps in stabilizing prices so consumers can afford goods. Example, if inflation rises, government reduces spending to slow down price increases. Predicting mistakes and future risks. Goal, avoid economic mistakes using predictions and planning. How? Economists study trends to make better policies. Wrong assumptions can harm the economy, so careful planning is needed. Example, in 2008, many economists failed to predict the financial crisis, leading to a global recession. Shortcut to remember. SCP, stimulate economy, control inflation, predict mistakes. Trick word, scope. Fiscal policy gives a scope to manage the economy. Key takeaways. Fiscal policy boosts the economy by increasing demand. It controls inflation by adjusting government spending. Predictions help avoid economic crises in the future. Let me know if you need further simplification. Limitations of fiscal policy. Even though fiscal policy helps in economic growth, it has limitations that make it less effective in some cases. Let's understand these challenges. 1. Dependence on size and timing. Problem. Fiscal policy only works if applied at the right time and in the right amount. Issue. It's hard to predict economic booms and recessions, so governments may react late. Example. If the government increases spending during a recession, but does it too late, businesses might have already shut down. 2. Dependence on income redistribution. Problem. Fiscal measures work differently for rich and poor people. Issue. If rich people save more instead of spending, the demand won't increase much. Example. If the government gives tax cuts to the rich, they may save the money instead of spending it, slowing economic growth. 3. Government revenue flexibility. Problem. If the government reduces taxes, it has less money to spend on public services. Issue. If the government spends too much, it needs to borrow more, leading to debt. Example. A country that reduces taxes to increase spending might struggle later to manage its finances. Effects on private investment. Problem. Government spending can impact private businesses. Issue. If government spending increases too much, private companies might find it harder to invest. Example. If the government raises taxes on businesses, they might invest less, slowing down economic growth. Changes in balance of payments. Problem. Fiscal policy affects international trade. Issue. If government spending increases too much, it can increase imports and reduce exports. Example. If a country spends more on infrastructure, it may need to import materials, increasing its trade deficit. Problem: economic growth depends on how much people are willing to work. If people earn more, they might work less, reducing productivity. Example: if higher wages make people lazy, then the economy may not grow as expected. 7. Lack of coordination and integration. Problem: different economic sectors need to work together for fiscal policy to be effective. Issue: if policies aren't coordinated, they fail to create a big impact. Example: if tax policy reduces income tax but public spending is not increased, the policy may fail to stimulate demand. 8. Limitations of budgetary policy. Problem: the government budget is small compared to the entire economy. Issue: changes in the budget might not have a big impact on economic growth. Example: if the government increases spending, but it's a small part of GDP, the economy may not improve much. Shortcut to remember: BHL: size and timing, income redistribution, revenue, business impact, human effort, lack of coordination, changes in trade. Trick word: stable HC. Fiscal policy should stabilize the economy, but these issues limit its success. Key takeaways: timing is crucial. Late policies may not work. Income distribution matters. Rich people may not spend enough. Too much spending can lead to debt. Private investment can be affected by government policies. Trade balance can change due to fiscal policy. Economic growth also depends on people's willingness to work. Lack of coordination can reduce the effectiveness of fiscal policy. Let me know if you need further clarification. Monetary policy. Monetary policy is a tool used by the central bank to control money supply, credit, and interest rates to influence the economy. It helps in stabilizing inflation, promoting growth, and managing economic fluctuations. 1. Meaning and definition. Monetary policy is how a central bank controls money to regulate the economy. It affects demand, supply, and credit availability. The goal is to control inflation, encourage growth, and maintain financial stability. Examples: if inflation is high, the central bank increases interest rates to reduce borrowing. If growth is slow, the central bank lowers interest rates to encourage spending. Definitions by economists. Paul Einzig: monetary policy is how the government manages the monetary system. Johnson: it is the central bank's control over money supply to meet economic goals. G.K. Shaw: any action by monetary authorities to change money supply or cost. Importance of monetary policy. Controls inflation, regulates money supply and credit, stabilizes economy, encourages investment and growth. 4. Monetary policy in developing countries. Developed nations focus on stability, controlling inflation. Developing nations aim for controlled expansion, growth plus inflation control. 2 goals, contradictory but balanced. 1. Promote economic growth. 2. Control inflation. 5. 2 aspects of monetary policy. Positive aspect: encourages savings and credit to boost capital formation. Negative aspect: restricts excess credit to prevent inflation. Shortcut to remember. MIND-P: meaning, I importance, nation's focus. D definitions: positive and negative aspects. Mind: monetary policy helps in controlling the mind of the economy. Key takeaways. Monetary policy controls money supply and credit. It helps in economic stability and growth. Developing and developed countries use it differently. It has both positive and negative effects on the economy. Let me know if you need any further clarification. Features of RBI's monetary policy. The Reserve Bank of India, RBI, controls monetary policy to manage credit, inflation, and economic growth. The key features of RBI's monetary policy are: 1. Active policy. Before 1951, RBI had a passive monetary policy, did not control credit. After 1951, RBI actively started using credit control measures. Example: RBI now adjusts interest rates to control money flow in the economy. Too flexible. Changes based on market needs. If economy needs more funds, RBI lowers CRR, repo rate, interest rates. If inflation is high, RBI tightens policy by reducing money supply. Example, during COVID-19, RBI reduced interest rates to boost the economy, controlled money supply. RBI balances between growth and inflation. If more growth is needed, RBI increases money supply. If inflation is rising, RBI restricts credit flow. Example, RBI increased repo rates in 2022 to control inflation. 4. Investment and saving oriented. RBI encourages investment by keeping loan interest rates low. RBI promotes savings by keeping deposit interest rates high. Example, higher FD rates attract people to save more. 5. Wide range of credit control methods. RBI uses both qualitative and quantitative measures to control credit. Quantitative, CRR, SLR, repo rate. Qualitative, moral suasion, credit rationing. Example, RBI increased CRR to reduce excess credit in the market. 6. Seasonal adjustments. RBI expands credit during busy seasons, agriculture, festival times. RBI reduces credit in slack seasons, low demand periods. Example, farmers get more loans during sowing season. Shortcut to remember: flexible, active, saving and investment, inflation control, credit control, weather-based. Trick word, FASIC. Think of RBI controlling the economy like a facilitator of money. Key takeaways. RBI actively controls credit and inflation. It adjusts policy based on market needs, encourages both savings and investments, uses various credit control methods, provides seasonal adjustments for agriculture. Let me know if you need more clarity. Objectives of monetary policy. Monetary policy is used by the RBI to maintain economic stability and achieve long-term growth. It has 5 key objectives. 1. Neutrality of money. Money should not cause economic fluctuations. Economic growth should depend on real factors, like production and employment, not money supply. If money supply is not controlled, it can create inflation and instability. Example, if RBI prints too much money, prices of goods rise, causing inflation. 2. Price stabilization. Keeping prices stable helps businesses plan better. Reducing inflation and deflation keeps the economy steady. Frequent price changes create uncertainty and affect business investments. Example, RBI increases interest rates when inflation is high to reduce spending. Exchange rate stability. Stable exchange rates make international trade smoother. Unstable exchange rates can weaken a country's currency and cause capital to leave the country, prevents currency speculation and economic crises. Example, if India's rupee value falls, imports become costly, increasing inflation. Full employment. The goal is to create equal jobs for job seekers. Avoids underemployment, people working below their skills. Ensures proper use of human resources. Example, government policies that create more jobs support full employment. 5. Economic growth. Real growth means increasing production of goods and services. Focus is on both quality and quantity of goods. Growth should benefit all sections of society, income equality. Example, if industries produce more, GDP increases, improving people's lives. NIPEF, neutrality of money, exchange rate stability, price stability, employment, financial growth. Trick word, NINCFF, new policy for economic future, to remember easily. Key takeaways. Money should be neutral, not cause instability. Stable prices help businesses and consumers. Stable exchange rates promote international trade. More jobs equals full employment. Economic growth should benefit everyone. Let me know if you need further explanations. Scope of monetary policy. Monetary policy plays a crucial role in economic development and financial stability. It helps control inflation, growth, and credit availability in a country. 1. Rapid economic development. A well-planned economy grows faster. Monetary policy ensures enough money supply to support businesses and industries, helps in financial planning and credit management. Example: RBI provides low-interest loans to industries to boost production. 2. Stability. Main issue equals inflation, rising prices. To grow steadily, prices and exchange rates must be stable. Balanced savings and investments help maintain stability. Deficit financing, printing money, can lead to inflation. Example: if inflation is high, RBI increases interest rates to reduce spending. Promotional role of monetary authorities. Monetary policy promotes banking efficiency, helps expand credit facilities in underdeveloped areas, adapts to changing financial conditions. Example: RBI ensures banks lend money to rural businesses and farmers. 4. Improve money and capital markets. Develops capital markets in poor countries, organizes the unstructured money market, ensures a better financial system for long-term growth. Example: RBI promotes stock markets and banking reforms to attract investments. 5. Suitable interest rate structure. The right interest rate supports economic growth. Lower rates equals more investments. Higher rates equals controls inflation. Example: RBI reduces repo rate to encourage borrowing and spending. 6. Public debt management. Managing government debt is crucial. Ensures the country can repay loans without economic crises. Example: RBI issues government bonds to raise funds instead of printing money. 7. Extend the process of monetization. Helps replace barter system with money. Encourages the use of banking and digital payments. Example: UPI and online banking make transactions easier, reducing cash dependency. Shortcut to remember: RS rapid growth, stability, promotional role, improve money markets, manage interest rates, public debt, process of monetization, economic development. Trick word. Think of RSPM equals Rapid Stability Plan for Improved Monetary Policy to remember easily. Key takeaways. Monetary policy supports economic growth, ensures stable prices and exchange rates, improves banking and capital markets, controls interest rates and public debt, promotes monetization and credit expansion. Let me know if you need further clarifications. Instruments of monetary policy. The Reserve Bank of India, RBI, uses different tools to control money supply and credit in the economy. These tools are divided into 2 types. 1. Quantitative general instruments, control the overall money supply. 2. Qualitative selective instruments, control how money is used. 1. Quantitative instruments, general money control. These methods affect the entire economy by increasing or decreasing the money supply. 1. Bank rate. Bank rate equals interest rate at which RBI lends money to commercial banks. If bank rate high, loans become costly, less borrowing, inflation decreases. If bank rate low, loans become cheaper, more borrowing, economic growth increases. Example: if inflation is high, RBI increases the bank rate to reduce excess money in the economy. 2. Open market operations, OMO. RBI buys or sells government securities in the open market. If RBI sells bonds, money goes to RBI, less money in the economy, inflation control. If RBI buys bonds, money goes to banks, more money in the economy, growth. Example: during inflation, RBI sells government bonds to absorb excess money from banks. 3. Reserve requirements, CRR and SLR. RBI decides how much money banks must keep as reserves. Cash reserve ratio, CRR, percent of total deposits banks must keep with RBI. Statutory liquidity ratio, percent of deposits must keep as cash, gold, or securities. High CRR, SLR, banks lend less, money supply decreases. Low CRR SLR, banks lend more, money supply increases. Example, if RBI increases CRR, banks have less money to lend, reducing inflation. 4. Repo rate. Repo rate equals interest rate at which banks borrow from RBI. Higher repo rate, borrowing from RBI becomes expensive, less lending, money supply. Lower repo rate, borrowing from RBI becomes cheaper, more lending, money supply. Example, RBI reduces repo rate during a recession to encourage businesses to take loans. 5. Liquidity Adjustment Facility, LF. RBI helps banks manage short-term money needs, uses repo and reverse repo rates to control liquidity. Example, if banks have excess money, they deposit it with RBI under reverse repo rate to earn interest. Qualitative instruments, selective money control. These methods control the direction of credit flow in specific sectors. 1. Rationing of credit. RBI limits how much banks can lend to certain sectors, prevents excessive lending to risky sectors. Example, RBI limits loans to the real estate sector to avoid a housing bubble. 2. Margin requirement. The difference between loan amount and collateral value. High margin, borrowers need to put more money, less risky lending. Example, if margin requirement on a car loan is 40%, the borrower must pay 40% upfront. 3. Variable interest rate. RBI adjusts interest rates for different sectors. Encourages or discourages loans in specific industries. Example, lower interest rates for agriculture loans to support farmers. 4. Regulation of consumer credit. RBI controls installment payments and loan conditions for consumers, prevents overborrowing and excessive debt. Example, RBI reduces loan tenure for luxury cars to discourage unnecessary borrowing. 5. Licensing. RBI approves or rejects licenses for new banks and financial institutions, ensures only trusted banks operate in India. Example, RBI rejects a new bank's license if it does not meet financial security standards. Shortcut to remember. BOVRL, RMVR rate, open market, V variations in reserves, repo rate, LAF rationing, margin, variable rate, regulation, L licensing. Trick word, think of BORL equals bank operations vital for reserve liquidity. Key takeaways. Quantitative tools control total money supply. Bank rate, OMO, CRR, repo, LF. Qualitative tools control where money goes. Credit rationing, margin, licensing. RBI increases rates to reduce money supply, control inflation. RBI decreases rates to increase money supply, boost growth. These tools help keep inflation low and economy stable. Haber bank rate, explained in simple terms. The bank rate is the interest rate at which the RBI lends money to commercial banks. It is also called the discount rate because RBI rediscounts eligible bills, loans, or credit given to businesses. Higher bank rate, loans become expensive, less borrowing, money supply decreases, inflation control. Lower bank rate, loans become cheaper, more borrowing, money supply increases, economic growth. Benefits of bank rate policy. 1. Controls credit effectively, helps regulate money supply by making loans costly or cheap. 2. Helps in transitioning to new policies, prevents monetary control loss when RBI shifts to new policies. Example, when inflation is high, RBI increases the bank rate to make loans costly, reducing extra money in the market. Limitations of bank rate policy. 1. Banks do not borrow from RBI. Commercial banks keep extra money with them and do not rely on RBI for funds. This makes the bank rate less effective in controlling credit. 2. Market interest rates do not change. Even if RBI changes the bank rate, commercial banks may not change their loan interest rates. If market rates don't adjust, the bank rate policy fails to control credit flow. 3. Businesses avoid bills of exchange. The bank rate policy works only if businesses use bills of exchange, formal credit documents. But today, most businesses prefer direct loans and overdrafts, reducing the effectiveness of the policy. 4. Wages, costs, and prices are not flexible. Ideally, when bank rate increases, wages and costs should automatically decrease to balance the economy. But strong trade unions and rigid labor laws prevent wages from adjusting quickly, making the policy ineffective. 5. Business expectations matter more. If businesses expect a price rise, they will continue borrowing even at a high bank rate. If businesses expect prices to fall, they won't take loans even at a low bank rate. 6. Limited power to control deflation. Even if RBI lowers the bank rate below 3 cents, market interest rates won't fall below 3%. This makes it ineffective in controlling deflation, but somewhat useful in controlling inflation. 7. Cannot correct balance of payments. BOP issues occur when exports and imports are imbalanced. The bank rate cannot fix BOP problems because it does not influence international capital movements directly. 8. Non-discriminatory policy. The bank rate affects all sectors equally, whether they are productive, useful, or unproductive, wasteful. It does not target specific industries that may need more credit. 9. Wrong bank rate level causes instability. If RBI does not increase the bank rate during a boom, people will keep borrowing and inflating the economy. If RBI does not reduce the bank rate during a recession, people will stop borrowing and worsen the slowdown. Shortcut to remember, BMBB banks don't borrow from RBI. Market rates don't change. Bills of exchange are not used. Wages, costs, prices not flexible. Pessimism or optimism matters more. Bank rate cannot control deflation. Balance of payments not controlled, cannot target productive sectors, needs correct timing for success. Trick word, BMBWP BBCN. Think of bank monetary barriers with policy, but bank can't neutralize. Key takeaways. Bank rate helps control inflation and money supply, but is not always effective. It works only if banks borrow from RBI and market rates adjust accordingly. Businesses' expectations and trade unions make it less effective. Cannot control deflation and BOP issues effectively. Let me know if you need more clarity. Open market operations, explained simply. Open market operations, OMOs, refer to the buying and selling of assets like gold, foreign exchange, government securities, or company shares by the Reserve Bank of India, RBI. The aim is to control the money supply and influence the economy. Benefits of open market operations. 1. Influence prices and wages. By buying or selling securities, the RBI can control prices and wages. If the RBI sells securities, it can reduce money supply, control inflation, and attract foreign exchange or gold. 2. Support bank rate. OMOs support the bank rate policy and make it more effective. For example, during a depression, a low bank rate can be followed by purchasing securities. 3. Fulfilling seasonal needs. OMOs help manage seasonal fluctuations in credit. The RBI can buy securities during busy seasons and sell them during off seasons. 4. Support government credit. OMOs help stabilize government securities prices. By buying at low prices and selling at high prices, the RBI supports government borrowing. Limitations of open market operations. 1. Lack of securities market. For OMOs to work, there must be a well-developed securities market. If there aren't enough saleable securities, OMOs will not be effective. 2. Need for penal bank rate. OMOs are less effective without a penal bank rate, a rate higher than market rates. Without it, commercial banks may borrow more from the RBI, limiting the RBI's ability to control the credit flow. 3. Velocity of credit money not constant. The success of OMOs depends on how fast money circulates. In times of high business activity, money circulation increases, making it hard to control credit by selling securities. 4. Banks act differently. OMOs are effective only when banks and people behave as expected. If banks and businesses don't follow the central bank's actions, OMOs may fail. 5. Cash reserve ratio instability. OMOs rely on a stable cash reserve ratio. If banks keep higher reserves than required, OMOs may not work as effectively to control credit. 6. Business attitude. Pessimism versus optimism. OMOs depend on whether businesses are optimistic or pessimistic. During a depression, businesses may not borrow even when the RBI increases the money supply. During a boom, businesses may borrow despite the RBI selling securities to control credit. Shortcut to remember. BOSS LPVC. Buying or selling of securities offers support to bank rate. Seasonal credit control supports government credit. LAC of securities market. Penal bank rate needed. Velocity of credit is on changes in business attitude. Trick word, BOSS LPVC. Think of BOSS helps in control, LP gives challenges, VC is unstable. Key takeaways. OMOs help control inflation and money supply by buying or selling securities. It supports the bank rate policy, helps with seasonal credit needs, and stabilizes government credit. OMOs have limitations like the need for a stable securities market, penal bank rates, and the attitudes of businesses. Let me know if you need more clarity on this topic. Variations in the reserve requirement, explained simply. The reserve requirement is a tool used by the Reserve Bank of India, RBI, to control the money supply in the economy. By changing the reserve ratio, the RBI can influence how much money banks can lend. Types of reserve requirements. 1. Cash reserve ratio, CRR. Definition. CRR is the portion of a commercial bank's total deposits that must be kept as cash reserves with the RBI. Current range. RBI can set CRR between 3% and 15% of total demand and time liabilities bank deposits. Effect. If RBI increases CRR, banks keep more money with RBI, less money available for loans, credit supply decreases. If RBI decreases CRR, banks keep less money with RBI, more money available for loans, credit supply increases. Example. If a bank has 100 crore in deposits and CRR is 4%, it must keep 4 crore with RBI and can lend 96 crore. If CRR increases to 6%, the bank must keep 6 crore and can only lend 94 crore. Statutory liquidity ratio. Definition. SLR is the portion of a bank's deposits that must be kept in liquid assets like cash, gold, or government securities, but with the bank itself, not RBI. Current rate, 25% of net demand and time liabilities, NDTL. Effect. If RBI increases SLR, banks must keep more money in liquid assets, less money available for loans. Credit supply decreases. If RBI decreases SLR, banks can use more money for lending. Credit supply increases. Example. If a bank has 100 crore in deposits and SLR is 20%, it must keep 20 crore in liquid assets and can lend 80 crore. If SLR increases to 25%, the bank must keep 25 crore and can lend only 75 crore. Key takeaways. CRR and SLR help RBI control credit supply and money circulation. Higher CRR-SLR equals less money for loans, credit contraction. Lower CRR-SLR equals more money for loans, credit expansion. CRR is kept with RBI, but SLR is kept with banks. Shortcut to remember. CS cut, cash kept with RBI. CELR, securities kept with banks. Controls UBOT and tightens money supply. Trick word CS cut. Think of CRR and SLR cut money from banks to control credit supply. Let me know if you need further simplification. Repo rate, reverse repo rate, and liquidity adjustment facility, LF, explained simply. The Reserve Bank of India, RBI, controls money supply in the economy by setting interest rates at which banks borrow and lend money. Two important rates are: 1. Repo rate, the rate at which banks borrow money from RBI. 2. Reverse repo rate, the rate at which RBI borrows money from banks. 1. Repo rate, RBI. Borrowing from RBI's. Definition. It is the interest rate at which banks borrow money from RBI by selling government securities. Effect. If repo rate increases, borrowing becomes costly, less money available for loans, inflation decreases. If repo rate decreases, borrowing becomes cheaper, more money available for loans, inflation increases. Example: if a bank needs 100 crore and RBI sets the repo rate at 6 cent, the bank must pay 6 crore as interest. If the repo rate is reduced to 5 cent, the bank pays only 5 crore, making loans cheaper for businesses and individuals. 2. Reverse repo rate. RBI borrows from banks. Definition: it is the interest rate at which RBI borrows money from banks. Effect: if reverse repo rate increases, banks prefer to lend to RBI, than high interest, less money in market, inflation decreases. If reverse repo rate decreases, banks lend more to people and businesses, more money in market, inflation increases. Example: if a bank has extra cash and RBI offers 5% interest, the bank prefers lending to RBI. If RBI increases it to 6 cent, banks will transfer even more money to RBI, reducing loan availability in the market. 3. Liquidity Adjustment Facility. Definition: it is a monetary tool that helps banks adjust their liquidity needs by borrowing from RBI through repurchase agreements, repos. Purpose: helps banks manage short-term liquidity shortages, helps maintain financial stability in the market. Example: if a bank needs cash for 1 day, it can sell government securities to RBI with a promise to buy them back the next day at a slightly higher price. This is called a repo agreement. Shortcut to remember: RRL, repo reverse liquidity. ARP, repo rate, banks borrow from RBI. Reverse repo rate, RBI borrows from banks. Liquidity adjustment facility helps banks manage cash needs. Trick word RRL, think repo reverse liquidity to remember the sequence. Qualitative instruments of monetary policy, explained simply. What are qualitative instruments? Qualitative instruments are monetary policy tools used by RBI to control the direction of credit flow in the economy. Unlike quantitative tools that control the total credit supply, qualitative tools prioritize where money should go, essential versus non-essential sectors. 1. Rationing of credit. Definition: it is a method used by RBI to control how banks lend money and set limits on loans to ensure funds are used wisely. Objective: to regulate the purpose of using bank credit and ensure it is directed towards important areas like agriculture, small businesses, and infrastructure. Ways of credit rationing. RBI can restrict how much money banks lend in the following ways. 1. Loan ceiling for banks. RBI sets a limit on the total loans a commercial bank can give, prevents banks from excessive lending, reducing financial risks. Capital ratio fixing. RBI fixes a ratio between the bank's capital and the loans it gives, ensures banks have enough funds to cover risks. 3. Loan limits on specific sectors. RBI sets loan ceilings for certain industries. Example: it can limit loans for luxury housing, but encourage loans for affordable housing. How does credit rationing work? If a bank exceeds the prescribed limit, RBI charges a penalty interest rate. RBI can restrict banks from getting extra funds by limiting rediscounting facilities, relending borrowed money. This reduces unnecessary credit expansion and ensures financial stability. Important note: rationing is not a selective credit control measure unless it targets specific borrowers, industries, or regions. Shortcut to remember: loan capital rationing. L, loan ceiling for banks. C, capital ratio fixing. R, rationing for specific sectors. Trick word, LCR, loan capital rationing. Let me know if you need more simplification. Variable interest rates, simplified. What are variable interest rates? Definition: variable interest rates mean that banks charge different interest rates based on the type of borrower, location, or purpose of the loan. It is a selective method used by RBI to control how much credit flows into different sectors. How does it work? Different rates for different borrowers. A farmer may get a loan at 6%, while a luxury car buyer may be charged 12%. Location-based rates. Loans in rural areas might have lower interest to encourage development. Purpose-based rates. Loans for education may have lower interest than loans for speculative activities like stock trading. Example, a small business owner gets a loan at 7%, while a real estate investor gets a loan at 10% to discourage speculative investments. Why is it important? Helps support essential sectors, agriculture, small businesses. Discourages borrowing for non-productive or speculative purposes. Maintains economic stability by controlling credit supply. Shortcut to remember, VIP, variable interest policy, variable rates for different borrowers, interest changes based on purpose, policy to control credit flow. Trick word, VIP. Let me know if you need further simplification. Margin requirement, simplified. What is margin requirement? Definition. Margin is the difference between the value of security, collateral, and the loan amount taken against it. RBI decides how much margin banks should keep, meaning borrowers can't get 100% loans against their assets. This helps in controlling excess credit in the market. How does it work? If RBI increases margin, borrowers get less loan against the same security. If RBI decreases margin, borrowers get more loan against the same security. Example, if a stock is worth 1,000 and RBI sets a margin of 40%, the bank will give a loan of 60,000 only. If RBI increases the margin to 50 cents, the loan amount will reduce to 50,000. Benefits of margin requirement. Easy to apply, simple for banks to manage. Fair for everyone. Both lenders and borrowers follow the same rule. Controls inflation, stops excessive borrowing in risky sectors. Regulates non-banking lenders. Ensures financial discipline. Encourages productive loans. Less risky credit flow. Limitations of margin requirement. Borrowers can bypass the rule, and they may use cash or other assets to buy stocks. Non-regulated lenders. Some lenders outside RBI control can still give loans freely. Loans can be misused. Borrowers may use the loan for speculation instead of real investment. Shortcut to remember. Margin requirement limits loans. Inflation control measure. Our rules apply to all borrowers. Reduces speculative borrowing. Outside lenders may bypass rules. Regulates credit flow. Trick word, inflation regulation reduces outside rules. Let me know if you need further simplification. Key aspects of RBI's role in monetary policy. The RBI, Reserve Bank of India, plays a crucial role in regulating and controlling the economy through monetary policy. Below are two important aspects of RBI's regulatory functions. 1. Licensing. RBI issues licenses to banks to ensure proper banking services across different regions. It helps in balanced regional development by encouraging banks to set up branches in underserved areas. Example, if a region lacks banking services, RBI can license new banks to open branches there, ensuring financial inclusion. 2. Regulation of consumer credit. RBI controls consumer loans to prevent economic instability. It adjusts loan terms based on economic conditions, inflation, recession. Example, during inflation, RBI restricts loans to reduce extra spending. During recession, RBI makes loans cheaper to boost spending and economic growth. Shortcut to remember, LCR. L, licensing, regional banking development. C, consumer credit, loan control. Regulation, adjusting terms for inflation, recession. Trick word, LCR. Let me know if you need further simplification. Significance of monetary policy, simplified. What is monetary policy? Monetary policy controls the money supply and credit availability in an economy. It is implemented by the central bank, RBI in India, and the government to achieve economic goals. Helps in stabilizing prices, controlling inflation, and supporting economic growth. Importance of monetary policy. 1. Controls money supply and credit. Regulates how much money is available in the economy. Uses techniques like interest rates, bank reserves, and open market operations to adjust money flow. Example: if inflation is high, the RBI increases interest rates to reduce borrowing. If the economy is slow, RBI decreases interest rates to encourage spending. 2. Controls inflation and deflation. Inflation: too much money in the market, prices go up. Deflation: too little money in the market, prices go down. RBI uses easy money policy in recession and dear money policy in inflation. Example: if petrol prices increase too much, RBI reduces money supply to control inflation. If businesses are struggling, RBI lowers interest rates to boost investment. Strengthens central banking. Central bank controls credit flow using tools like bank rate, the interest rate at which RBI lends to banks. Cash reserve ratio, CRR, the percentage of cash banks must keep with RBI. Open market operations, OMO, buying, selling government securities to control money supply. Example: if RBI increases CRR, banks have less money to lend, reducing inflation. 4. Maintains stable interest rates. Ensures fair and stable interest rates across different sectors. Reduces huge differences in interest rates between industries. Encourages productive investment and discourages speculation. Example: if interest rates on loans vary too much across industries, RBI adjusts rates to create balance. 5. Develops financial institutions. More banks, financial institutions, more credit availability for businesses and people. Encourages savings and investments. RBI ensures that funds go to priority sectors, agriculture, small businesses, etc. Example: RBI helps open banks in rural areas to improve financial inclusion. /6. Supports industrial growth. Provides long-term loans for industries and businesses. Helps in setting up factories, buying machinery, and expanding production. Rediscounting facilities allow banks to offer cheaper loans to industries. Example: RBI helps industries by providing low-interest, long-term loans for business expansion. Shortcut to remember. Controls money supply and credit. Inflation and deflation management. Regulates central banking. Creates interest rate stability. Launches financial institutions. Encourages industrial development. Trick word: circle. Controls inflation, regulates, creates, launches, encourages. Let me know if you need further simplification. Limitations of monetary policy in India, simplified. What is monetary policy? It is the control of money supply and credit flow by the RBI to regulate the economy. However, in India, monetary policy faces many limitations that reduce its effectiveness. Key limitations of monetary policy. 1. Poor banking habits. Many people prefer cash over banking transactions, checks, digital payments. Since cash is not deposited in banks, it reduces banks' ability to create credit. Example: a shopkeeper prefers to keep cash at home instead of depositing it. Banks have less money to lend. 2. Limited role in economic growth. RBI has little control over money supply decisions. The finance ministry decides how much money to print. RBI can only supervise but cannot fully control economic growth. Example: if more money is needed for development projects, the government prints more money without RBI's approval. 3. Weak money market. The money market, where treasury bills, bonds, securities are traded, is underdeveloped. The monetary policy works only in organized markets, but fails in unorganized sectors. A rural moneylender gives rural loans without RBI regulation, reducing the impact of monetary policy. Black money problem. Unaccounted money, black money, is outside the banking system. Since black money is hidden, RBI cannot control it. This weakens monetary policy. Example: a businessman earns in cash and does not declare it, avoiding banking regulations. Limited control over inflation. Monetary policy alone cannot control inflation. Other factors, like oil prices, government policies, also influence inflation. Example: even if RBI increases interest rates, high fuel prices can still cause inflation. 6. Conflicting objectives. RBI needs to support economic growth, increase money supply, but also control inflation, reduce money supply. Balancing these two is difficult. Example: RBI lowers interest rates to boost business, but this increases inflation. 7. Non-monetized sector. Many rural areas still use barter system, exchange goods instead of money. Since no money is used, monetary policy has no effect on them. Example: a farmer exchanges wheat for rice instead of using money. 8. Poor coordination with fiscal policy. If the government spends too much, deficit financing, RBI's monetary policies fail. RBI cannot control government borrowing. Example: government prints extra money, more money supply, inflation rises, RBI's control fails. 9. Weak credit control methods. Some credit policies, like loans for farmers, weaker sections, are only recommendations, not mandatory. Banks do not take them seriously. Example: RBI asks banks to increase loans for farmers, but banks ignore it. Exactly, limited power of monetary instruments. RBI's tools, CRR, SLR rate, have limitations. High CRR, SLR reduces bank profits, while low CRR, SLR increases banking risks. Example: if CRR is too high, banks cannot give enough loans. Poor implementation. Lack of coordination between banks and RBI reduces monetary policy success. Example: banks delay implementing RBI's interest rate changes. Lack of banking in rural areas. Many villages do not have banks, so monetary policy cannot regulate credit flow there. Example: a farmer borrows from a moneylender instead of a bank. Imbalance in credit allocation. Large industries get more loans, while small businesses and farmers struggle. Farmers rely on moneylenders who charge high interest rates. Example: a big company gets a 100 crore loan, but a small farmer cannot get 50,000 easily. Shortcut to remember: plumbing blocks. Poor banking habits. Limited role in growth. You underdeveloped money market. Balancing inflation and growth. Inflation control is weak. Non-monetized sector. Government spending issues. Bank credit control is weak. Low impact of monetary instruments. Organization problems. Implementation. Coordination issues with fiscal policy. Key areas lack banking. Small business loans are less. Trick word: plumbing blocks. Let me know if you need further simplification. Difference between monetary policy and fiscal policy. What are these policies? Both monetary policy and fiscal policy are used to control the economy. Monetary policy, controlled by RBI, focuses on money supply and interest rates. Fiscal policy, controlled by government, focuses on taxes and public spending. Key differences: monetary policy, BI, fiscal policy, does aggregate demand changes demand by changing interest rates, changes demand by changing taxes and spending. Definition: policy to control money and credit flow, policy to control government income and spending. 3. Implementation: faster, as only RBI decides. Slower, as it needs government approval. For impact: slow impact, as it takes time to adjust interest rates. Fast impact, as gov spending directly affects economy. 5. Authority: controlled by RBI, central bank, controlled by Government of India. 6. Aim: regulates money supply. regulates government revenue and expenditure. 7. Tools, bank rate, CRR, SLR, open market operations, taxes, public debt, gov spending. Examples for better understanding. Monetary policy. Example, if inflation is high, RBI increases interest rates, so loans become expensive. People borrow less, reducing money in circulation. Example, if the economy is slow, RBI reduces interest rates to make loans cheaper. Businesses invest more, increasing economic activity. Fiscal policy. Example, if unemployment is high, the government increases spending on public projects, roads, schools. This creates jobs. Example, if inflation is high, the government increases taxes to reduce people's spending, controlling inflation. Shortcut to remember, sit fast. PED, monetary equals fast, fiscal slow. Influence, monetary equal money supply, fiscal gov spending. Tools, monetary bank rates, fiscal taxes. OCUS, monetary, interest rates. Fiscal, on authority, RBI, fiscal govt. Supply control, monetary cash flow, fiscal gov budget. Target, monetary inflation control, fiscal economic growth. Trick word, sit fast. Let me know if you need more simplification. Okay, here are the questions again. 6.8.1, short answer type questions. 1. Explain the structure of the Indian economy. 2. What are the main features of national income? 3. Write short notes on gross domestic product, GDP, and gross national product, GNP. 4. Explain the concepts of net domestic product, NDP, and net national product, NNP. 5. How is national income measured with the help of the expenditure method? 6. Mention the difficulties in measuring the national economy. 7. State the choice of methods for national income measurement. 8. What are the features of the business cycle? 9. Explain the economic indicators under the business cycle. 10. What is inflation? Discuss its types. 11. Discuss the measurement of inflation. 12. State the factors affecting the money supply in India. 13. What are the types of fiscal policy? 14. List the scope of fiscal policy. 15. What are the limitations of fiscal policy? 16. Discuss the objectives of monetary policy. 17. State the significance of monetary policy. 8. Differentiate between monetary policy and fiscal policy. 6.8.2, long answer type questions. 1. Discuss the Indian economic environment. What are the features and problems of the Indian economy? 2. Explain the recent changes and developments in the Indian economy. Also discuss the SWOT analysis of the Indian economy. 3. What is national income, and what are the factors determining the size of national income? 4. Illustrate the basic concepts of national income. 5. Discuss the measurement of GDP and GNP with growth rate. 6. Define the business cycle with its types and various phases. 7. What are the effects of the business cycle? Explain the measures to control business cycles. 8. What is inflation? Discuss the effects and causes of inflation. 9. Describe the modern theories of inflation in detail. 10. What is the concept of the supply of money? Explain the measures and changes in the money supply in India. 11. Discuss fiscal policy with its features and objectives. 12. Explain the role, instruments, and significance of fiscal policy. 13. What is monetary policy? Discuss its features and scope. 14. Explain the different instruments of monetary policy. 15. Discuss the significance and limitations of monetary policy.